I was halfway through my morning coffee when the past I'd buried tried to claw its way back. My name was suddenly trending everywhere, and for the first time in 8 years, my phone lit up with her name. One text. 8 years of silence cracked open by 10 words. Christmas Eve dinner. 6:30 p.m. family only. Important discussion. I read it twice, then a third time, feeling something old and jagged slice through me. I knew exactly what that phrase meant. Important discussion had always been code for one thing. They needed something. Quick reminder, most of you aren't subscribed. If you're enjoying this, please hit subscribe. It's free. Your support means a lot. My name is Harper Lane. I'm 27 now, founder of a fintech company born out of spite and bad coffee, and the Lane family declared me dead when I was 19. I remember the night they did it, the rain, the suitcase, the way no one looked at me except my grandmother. But that morning, sitting in my loft in Oakland with the bay fog curling against the windows, all I could think was, of course, the moment they see $1 attached to my name, they come crawling back. So I texted back, I'll be there. And I meant it. Because after 8 years of silence, I wasn't coming home as the daughter they buried. I was coming as the one thing they never saw coming. 8 years ago, I walked out of the Lane house in Cedar Heights wearing a soaked jacket half-buttoned, a suitcase dragging behind me. I had just told my father, Richard Lane, owner of Lane Co. Home Goods, that I was dropping out of Bayshore University to move to California and build a startup. He shoved his chair back so violently it slammed into the wall. From tonight forward, he shouted, Harper Lane is dead. To this family, she's dead. My mother, Marla, never lifted her eyes. My younger brother, Ethan, smirked into his phone. My aunt Corinne delivered the final cut. Don't come crawling back when your fantasy crashes. You just burned every bridge to your inheritance. I remember waiting just one heartbeat for someone to stop me, to say she's still ours. No one did. The only person who moved was Grandma Lucille. She tugged me into the hallway, pressed 5 crisp $100 bills into my hand, and tucked a small folded note into my coat pocket. Go make them eat those words, baby, she whispered. That was the last sentence anyone in that house spoke to me for 8 years. I took the train downtown, bought the cheapest ticket to California, and by the time I stepped off in Emeryville 2 days later, I had $41 left. The first year was nothing but survival, sleeping on couches, cleaning offices from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m., delivering takeout on a borrowed bike, showering at the 24-hour gym under fake emails for free trials. I learned to code on library computers and slept in a room the size of a closet with 5 other people. Some nights, I stared at the city lights from a fire escape and nearly bought a ticket home. Every time, I pulled out Grandma Lucille's note, smoothed out her handwriting, and kept going. I built the first version of my app on a cracked second-hand laptop. When users finally started trickling and then pouring in, I told no one back home. The only voice from my old life was Grandma, calling once a month from a prepaid phone she kept hidden in an old cookbook. She never asked for money, never guilted me. She just listened, said she was proud, and hung up before her minutes ran out. Then this morning, everything changed. The Forbes article dropped. Harper Lane, the dropout who built an empire out of spite and code. Our valuation, $128 million. I expected fireworks inside me. Instead, there was just quiet. 8 years of being dead to them had hollowed out the victory. Then my phone buzzed again. A number I'd deleted long ago. One text. Those familiar venomous words. Important discussion. I felt my pulse flatten. That phrase always meant the same thing: they were in trouble. And they were. 9 months earlier, Grandma had called me late at night. Her voice was soft, apologetic. Lane Co. had overexpanded. Rates had spiked. The banks wanted their money. Total debt. $14. 2 million. Secured against every store. The house. Even Dad's retirement. She didn't ask me to fix it. She never would. But I already knew what I had to do. That night, I set up a Delaware LLC, nested it inside 2 more holding companies, and quietly began buying every dollar of Lane Co. Stepped. 1 lender at a time. 1 note at a time. By the time Forbes came knocking, I already owned every lien, every mortgage, every default clause. They never suspected the buyer was the daughter they buried. I stared out at the bay and felt something cold settle inside me. I booked the last flight to Chicago. Then I called Grandma. It's time, I told her. I know, she said softly. Be careful what you bring through that door, baby girl. I've been careful for 9 months, I replied. Tonight, I stop. I packed one overnight bag, a black dress, heels, and a slim leather folder from my safe. At the airport, I upgraded to a black Mercedes SUV because I wanted them to see it pull up. When the plane touched down, I turned my phone back on. Another text from my mother appeared instantly. "Can't wait to see you. We have so much to catch up on." I didn't answer. I drove through the snow-covered streets of Cedar Heights. The Lane house glowed with expensive lights, a perfect suburban monument to denial and debt. I stepped out of the Mercedes. Before I reached the top step, the front door swung open. My mother stood there in the velvet dress she saved for holidays, smiling like we hadn't lost nearly a decade. My father hovered behind her, eyes flicking over my clothes, my car, calculating. Ethan barely looked up from his phone. Aunt Corinne smirked over the rim of her champagneflute, and then, two small, warm arms wrapped around me, lavender and vanilla and home. "Grandma, you did it, kid," she whispered. "Every damn thing they said you couldn't." The foyer flooded with forced cheer, brittle smiles, shallow questions. I answered them all politely while noting every glance, every sizing up of my bag, my shoes, my watch. Dinner, was exactly as it had been every Christmas, polished, choreographed, suffocating. And then, finally, the show began. My father set down his wineglass with a sharp clink. "Lane Co. is on the brink of collapse," he began. Aunt Corinne leaned forward. "We need $2, $8 million to refinance. After that we survive. And you, well, you'd be the hero." My mother reached for my hand. "We could be a real family again," she whispered. Under the table, Grandma Lucille squeezed my finger steady, silent, unbreakable. I lifted my glass, took a slow zip, and set it down. 2.8 million, I repeated softly. My father exhaled, thinking he'd won. I felt the corner of my mouth curve. Interesting timing. The room went still. The front door blasted open with a rush of icy wind. Heavy footsteps crossed the entryway, and that's when my attorney walked in, carrying the aluminum briefcase that would end the Lane family as they knew it. The moment he stepped into the dining room, every fork froze midair. Snow still clung to the shoulders of his charcoal overcoat, and the aluminum briefcase in his hand gleamed under the chandelier like something surgical. This was the moment I had spent 9 months preparing for, and the moment my family realized they had invited a wolf to Christmas dinner. "My name is Sawyer Brooks," he said, voice calm enough to chill the room. "I'm lead counsel to Harper Lane." My father jumped from his chair so violently his napkin spun to the floor. "Who the hell let you in my house?" Sawyer didn't even look at him. He set the briefcase on the linen runner with surgical precision and popped the lock's 2 sharp metallic clicks that sounded like detonators. Document packets stacked neatly inside, thick as bricks. 8 months ago, Sawyer began as he laid them out one by one. Every dollar of Lane Co.'s outstanding indebtedness, totaling $14,200,000, was purchased and assigned to a Delaware holding company. Aunt Corinne snatched the first packet, flipping pages so fast they crackled. "This is impossible. We would have been notified." "You were," Sawyer said, sliding another packet forward. "Certified mail receipts, lender consent forms, UCC filings, all acknowledged by your counsel." He kept stacking the evidence. "Promissory notes endorsed to Lane Acquisition Group LLC. Mortgages on all 12 retail stores. The warehouse. The family home itself. And, worst of all, 3 personal guarantees bearing the signatures of Richard, Marla, and Corinne Lane, each now payable exclusively to me." My mother's wineglass slipped from her hand and shattered across the floor, red bleeding into the white carpet like a crime scene. Ethan's phone finally dropped from his fingers. "You bought our debt?" Sawyer didn't blink. "Ms. Lane purchased all of it. She is now the sole creditor." My father's face flushed purple. He slammed both hands on the table, rattling silverware. "This is extortion." "No, Mr. Lane," Sawyer replied evenly. "Extortion is illegal. This is ownership." He drew one final document from the case, a single sheet. The title at the top made my pulse thrum, even though I'd written half of it myself. "Notice of Default and Acceleration of Indebtedness." Sawyer continued, "As of 6:52 p.m. This evening Lane Co. is in material default across all facilities. The full amount is now immediately due and payable. Foreclosure proceedings may begin at 9 a.m. tomorrow." My mother swayed, and Ethan lunged to keep her from sliding out of the chair. Corinne shot to her feet, voice cracking. "You planned this. You set us up, you vindictive little But her words were swallowed by the mounting silence. I watched them, these people who once told me I was dead, finally understand exactly who had walked through their door tonight. Sawyer closed the briefcase with a soft click that sounded like a vault ceiling. I let the silence linger, thick and suffocating. Then I spoke. "Now you know who holds the future of Lane Co." My father erupted. He shouted. He threatened lawsuits. He demanded Sawyer leave. But every sound he made slid off the steel reality sitting in front of him. Because for the first time in his life, Richard Lane had no bargaining power. When his voice finally broke into ragged breathing, I reached into my coat and placed a second leather folder on the ruined tablecloth. Sawyer flipped it open. Inside sat a cashier's check for $350. My final offer, and a 15-page release agreement. I spoke clearly, each word a scalpel. "This check is yours as soon as all 4 of you sign. In exchange, you permanently release every claim to Lane Co., past, present, future. You walk away tonight with enough for a modest life somewhere else." I paused. Refusal and foreclosure begins in the morning. The house went so quiet I could hear the air shift. Then Grandma Lucille, my anchor, my only real family, reached for the heavy black pen, turned to the witness page, and signed her full name in elegant loops. Her calm, radiant smile crushed them harder than any document ever could. Corinne grabbed the pen next, hand shaking violently as she carved her name deep into the page. Ethan followed, tears streaking down his face, muttering curses under his breath. My mother had to be guided back into her chair. Mascara bled down her cheeks as she stared at the check, at me, at the signature line waiting for her. When she finally signed, her hand trembled so hard the ink jittered. Then came my father. He stood frozen over the document, pride and fury wrestling across his face. The grandfather clock in the hall chimed 9:30, each strike twisting the silence tighter. At last he snatched the pen, pressing so hard the nib cut into the page. "Richard Alan Lane." His signature bleed thick in dark anger carved into paper. Sawyer immediately gathered the documents, notarized each page with a sharp metallic stamp, and slid bound copies to their side of the table. "The debt is satisfied as of 9:32 p.m., he said. "You may deposit the check tonight." No one answered. My father stared at the table hollow. My mother cried into Ethan's hoodie. Corinne sat rigid, eyes burning with hatred. And Grandma Lucille, steady, warm, unbreakable, wrapped her hand around mine. I stood, one by one. They looked up at me, broken, furious, stunned. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel revenge. Just a cold, clean finality. I spoke softly, for the last time. "Merry Christmas." Then I walked out of the dining room, Grandma on my arm, Sawyer behind us, carrying the only thing that still mattered. My name on every line that counted. We stepped into the falling snow, the Mercedes purring in the driveway. I helped Grandma in, Sawyer closed her door, and we pulled away without looking back. The Lane house shrank in the rear-view mirror, its lights blurring into streaks of red and gold. For the first time in 8 years I felt something loosen in my chest. But I didn't know yet, not then, that tonight's victory would become the beginning of a much deeper reckoning. One that would end far more quietly and far more painfully than I ever could have imagined. Grandma fell asleep that Christmas Eve in her recliner, the fire warm against her cheeks, wrapped in the cashmere blanket I'd given her. For the first time in years, she looked weightless, no tension, no fear of the family that had tried to crush both of us. I stood there longer than I meant to, memorizing the rise and fall of her breath. She had carried me through 8 years of silence. Now I was finally strong enough to carry both of us. 6 months later, she was gone. It happened the way she always said she wanted, quietly, peacefully, like a soft exhale after a long story. I planned a small service. No theatrics, no pretenses, no Lane family lies, just the handful of people who had loved her honestly. The grief hit differently than anything I'd felt before, sharp and clean, with no bitterness attached. She had been the only part of my life untouched by manipulation. Losing her felt like losing the final safe place in the world. After she passed, everything else began collapsing the way rotten wood finally gives beneath a footstep. The Cedar Heights mansion sold at auction for barely enough to cover the remaining liens after I cleared the primary mortgage. My father moved into a cramped one-bedroom in Elm Grove, blaming the banks, the economy, everyone but himself. My mother filed for divorce 31 days later, citing irreconcilable differences. She vanished to a condo in Naples, Florida, taking half the settlement and none of the accountability. Aunt Corinne's real estate license was suspended after multiple ethics complaints. Last I heard, she was working commission only at a department store off the interstate, still telling anyone who would listen that I'd ruined her life. Ethan tried a job at a car dealership, got fired, and now delivers food in the same hoodie he wore the night everything fell apart. The mascara stain from my mother's tears never quite washed out. Lane Co. didn't survive, not in its old form. Under my full ownership, I stripped the name, rebuilt the infrastructure, kept the 3 profitable stores, and rebranded the rest. Within 9 months, the company was finally in the black. The employees who had stayed loyal got raises and equity. The ones who whispered behind my back found new places to do it. Through all of it, I felt Grandma beside me, sometimes as a memory, sometimes as a standard to measure myself against. Every Sunday at 4, I still waited for the phone to ring before remembering it wouldn't. I missed her voice more than I ever missed the family that discarded me. When the next Christmas Eve came, snow fell softly over the city, like the world was trying again. I brought a small tree to her condo, a space she had chosen for its peace, not its size. I decorated it alone, placing 12 ornaments for the years I'd been gone, and 1 more for the year I came home on my own terms. On the mantel sat the framed note she gave me the night I left, her handwriting in blue ink, the words that kept me alive when nothing else did. Go make them eat those words, baby. I lit a candle beside it, sat on the floor with a mug of cocoa the way we used to, and let the quiet settle around me. For the first time since she passed, the silence didn't hurt. It felt like understanding. And for the first time in my life, Christmas felt exactly the way she always wanted it to feel, like something I had finally earned.